Hi everyone, welcome to Sunday sessions. Hopefully you've been listening throughout the day so far. This time we're going to be joined by Jack Harrison. So I'm going to hand over to him. He's going to do a really interesting presentation for us about the footwear industry, and then we'll go to our usual sort of Q&A session afterwards. So I'll hand over to you, Jack.
Okay, thank you. Hi everyone, my name's Jack. I'm actually really excited to be part of York Design Week because last year I came and I visited. I was really intrigued and I went to a couple of the talks and I was really impressed as well. And now I'm really thankful that I've actually got the opportunity to be part of this event in the week, especially given what's going on. So I just want to thank Laura and York Design Week as a whole for just putting this together, not just me, just for everyone else as well involved. So yeah, I'm really excited. I can't wait just to get stuck in. So yeah, right. Are we ready to present?
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah. Okay, so here's my presentation. My name's Jack Harrison, as just mentioned. I'm going to be talking about design for behaviour change. So this is an emerging field within design. It's not implemented as much as I'd like it to be, but hopefully after this talk, things will start changing, and especially in the future. As I mentioned, I'm really excited to be part of it. So let's get started. So my name is Jack. I'm from Middlesbrough, if you can't already tell from my accent. I'm currently a part-time lecturer at York St John, a visiting lecturer. So I'm just passing on what I've learned in my undergraduate and my master's degrees on to the students, and teaching them the things that I learned and avoiding the mistakes that I made. So I'm really enjoying it, and I'm just going to talk through what I've been doing on the master's degree. So I'm going to take a little bit of I'm going to backtrack a little bit and talk about, my background and, things that I've learned before I studied design. So I originally have a background in photography. So I studied this at CCAD, Cleveland College of Art and Design. It's now known as the Northern School of Art. So I'd actually recommend it to anyone. If anyone's thinking about going to college to study anything creative, hands down, I would recommend, without a doubt, the place to go. Anyway, I studied photography and graphic design at A-level. So this is when I learned Photoshop and how to manipulate and understand light, as well as things like composition. And looking back, a lot of people, if you were to tell your younger self, oh, why don't you study design at college? Looking back now, I'd probably say, no, I wouldn't do that, because although photography's got nothing to do with design, like objectively, it is implemented as part of it. And what I mean by that is I've learned a lot of skills from photography, like composition and lighting and things like that I apply all the time in my design work. I'm currently teaching these techniques to the undergrad students. I think it's really important, and it's helped me to diversify my skills. So I've got graphic design in the top left, some studio lighting and some landscape stuff there, just to show you what I have done. After that, I wasn't too sure on a career in photography, although I learned a lot. I then decided to study mechanical engineering at Teesside University. I completed the foundation year, but again, it didn't feel right after I completed that first year. Something wasn't right. Like, my instincts were telling me this is not quite right for me. So again, I made the decision to study design at York St John. And although I haven't studied any kind of engineering since, I still apply what I've learned to some of my design work. And again, diversifying my skills, I think it's really important. So then, during my studies at York St John, this is where I studied my undergrad and my master's degree, as I mentioned. But during this time, I've focused on creating human-centered products that help people in a variety of different ways. Okay, so one of them would be making the kitchen more inclusive, so that a lot more people can enjoy it in different ways, in co-living environments. Another product that I came up with was a way to alleviate loneliness using co-living. That was an interesting one, to say the least. But yeah, again, human-centered products and solutions to things. And the topic of this keynote would be changing consumer behaviour. I'm not going to reveal the product just yet. I'm going to get onto that, because otherwise I think it'll spoil it. But anyway, that's what I've been focusing on, and this is what I want to share. Okay, this is why this project has brought me here. But what is really important that you get from this, whoever's watching, is I'm trying to show you how important you are, like me and you, how critical we are to making systems work as a whole, the circular economy specifically. So I'm just going to get into that now. Okay, so design for behaviour change. It's sometimes known as DFBC. It's an emergent field of design. Not a lot of people know about it, but I think I've come across it in the past year, and it's really, really interesting. So the topic within that I'm going to try and address, or the question I suppose, would be how changing behaviour can make the footwear industry more circular. And I'll get on to why I've chosen the footwear industry in a minute. Okay, so the first thing I want to address is, before I get onto the circular economy, is something called the linear economy. So this is the way we actually consume products at the minute. And this is the way it has been for the past couple of hundred years, or well, forever, I suppose. So essentially what we do is we dig things up or chop things down. We then make things from those parts that we've dug up or chopped down. So products, like shoes, handbags, cars, airplanes, whatever. And then we dispose of them, and then the process starts again. It's not a cycle, it just starts again. It's a one-way system. It's linear, as the name suggests. So there are obvious consequences to this kind of behavior, some of which we're starting to see the implications of, like global warming. I think it's fairly, I'm not going to go into it. I'm sure we're all aware of some of the issues that this kind of consumption, produces. But just as a startling fact, I actually came across this during my research, but about 90% of food that we eat already contains microplastics. So microplastics are actually remnants of plastic waste that's been eroded down to, so small that we actually can't see them. But about 90% of everything we eat already contains plastics, which is incredible when you think about it, considering that plastic was only invented about 100-ish years ago. That's quite a startling fact, and it's really important to take that in consideration when we think about the implications of what we do and how we consume. So basically, in the 70s, there was something created called the circular economy, and this is praised as being the solution to all of our problems. Okay, so you're probably thinking, well, what's the circular economy? How does it differ to the way we consume things now? So it's the complete opposite to the linear economy. It's essentially an ecosystem of products. Okay, so when we think about the way the products of nature, the products of nature break down and become part of the system again, the circular economy, it's exactly the same process, but we apply the way things regenerate to products. Okay, so this mimics nature's ability to eliminate waste and reuse and recycle. That's the easiest way to think about it. So if you think about rebirth and regeneration in nature, we apply that to products instead of just disposing of them and then digging up some more stuff. Okay, so that sounds great, doesn't it? Problem solved, we can all go home. It's not quite as easy as that. As with everything, it's more complicated. There's a few problems. I'm just going to go into like one or two. There is a fair few problems, but so basically, there are loads of variations on the framework. So basically, how this circular system actually works. But to simplify it, basically we start with reuse. Bear with me, I've just got a lot of notes here. There we are. Right, so we promote reuse. Okay, so once we own a product, we would resell it or give it to someone that's reusing. We would then, after it's been reused as many times as we can, we then aim to repair it. So if we were talking about shoes, we would repair the sole and not throw away the upper. That's an example of repair. Then after that, once it's been repaired as much as it can be, we would then aim to remanufacture it. So we would take those materials to the factory, break them down, remanufacture them without wasting anything, and like rebirth that product essentially, and then resell it again. And once that's been done as many times as it can be, we then redistribute those materials. So imagine if we break down a shoe, we could take the leather from that shoe and incorporate it into some little parts of a handbag or another product or another shoe or a smaller shoe. So we redistribute those materials into other areas that need it, much in the same way that nature does. Okay, so that's all great, but all of these steps have one common denominator: you and me. Without you and me, this system does not work. It cannot work without people. Okay, so without consumers actually wanting to reuse or repair, or send them off to the factory, this whole system breaks down, and then we're back to square one again. Okay, so just building on that a little bit more, the consumer, i.e. me and you, is absolutely critical to making this system or the circular economy work as a whole. Okay, and I found in my research that there's not a lot of consideration given to what happens to a product once it's the consumer's actually got it. So most of the focus in the industry at the minute is actually on making stuff like sustainable, quote unquote. So this is, a lot of it is greenwashing, or they focus on remanufacture or biodegradation. Now, that biodegradation isn't really promoting biodegradation isn't really circular, because we lose material value because we're not reusing it or remanufacturing it. The first thing we're doing is letting it just sit out in the open air, and go back into the soil. There's value in that product still that we can, we could have reused it at some point. And then on top of that, the apparel industry is actually the second worst industry after oil in terms of environmental impact. So it's a big contributor to some of these problems that we're encountering. And just as an example, I think in the UK there's approximately about 300 million pairs of shoes that are thrown away each year in the UK alone. Now we've only got about 70 million people. If we think about other countries like China, India, or America, they have vastly more of the population than we do. You can imagine the implications of throwing away stuff. How bad this is going to get. Okay, so just building on some of those barriers, I'm just going to go quickly through some of them. So there's a distinct lack of interest. So these barriers are preventing us from implementing the circular economy. So I think there was about 6 of them that I identified. There's a lack of interest. So what I mean by that is consumers, me and you, we're not aware and we're uneducated on the benefits and the implications of using something like the circular economy. So that's a barrier. Something known as choice editing. So this is a way in which businesses offer cheaper products that are less sustainable. So this encourages consumers to buy stuff that's cheaper and less sustainable because it's the easier choice. Therefore, we are editing the choices that consumers make. Typically, sustainable stuff is high, it's higher value, and that's one of the barriers that are preventing stuff from being adopted and bought more sustainably. Complex construction. So the complexity of the way and the construction of the shoes is actually preventing repair from the consumer and the manufacturer or the company that actually makes them in the first place. So most of them are glued together, and you can repair some shoes, but they're typically more formal shoes, that you'd go to a cobbler's with, not trainers and not lifestyle shoes. Typically they can't be repaired. On top of that, there is a lack of incentives. So there's a lack of incentives financially and socially. So what I mean by that is there's no return for me as a consumer if I was to give a shoe back to a company, or apart from getting some money back. Typically there's no incentive whatsoever, as found out in the Adidas Futurecraft loop. You might have a question on that at the end, but basically the consumer gets nothing in return. So their opinion is, well, why should I do that? Because I'm not getting anything back. There's also something known as the attitude behaviour gap. So basically this is a disconnect between what the consumer makes, the decision they're making, and what they think they're actually doing. So a good example would be when you're told that something's green or sustainable, you buy it because it's green, it's sustainable, but you don't actually know why it's sustainable and what its implications are. So these biodegradable bags that we get told they're actually biodegradable, technically they are, but they have to be in like a what's the word? I can't think off the top of my head now. Industrial composter, that was it. They have to be put on industrial composter. Leaving them in the garden, they won't biodegrade. So that's like greenwashing. There's a disconnect between what you think you're doing and what's actually happening. So that's known as the attitude behavior gap. That's a big barrier. And on top of that, I'm not going to go into this, but there's a big lack of legal obligations. So there's no legal requirement for a company to provide parts after a certain amount of time, which also prevents things like the circular economy being implemented. Companies can do it, but obviously they want to save money and resources and stuff. So it's a lot of effort for them to supply things, 10, 20 years down after a product's been released, which is understandable. So there's a lot of barriers, but as you can see, a lot of them are actually consumer based. So the behavioral, it just reiterates the point that consumer behavior and the way we buy and consume and act and treat things is integral to making this system work. Although, a lot of it is designed, it is really important. So I'm just going to talk about some of the interventions. I can't remember, I think it was it John Adams? I think he said every problem is a solution in disguise. I think that was right. I think that I might be wrong. But basically, I've turned those barriers and found some interventions and basically turned them upside down to create solutions. Okay. So the first thing we can do is we can change attitudes. We can do this by educating them and making them aware of the implications of their decisions. So a good example is Nike. They're offering like a trade-in at the minute in certain stores, so that it makes consumers think twice about throwing something away. Okay. We can introduce incentives, so we can introduce financial rewards for positive behavior and penalties for negative behavior. So this helps to ensure positive behavior, i.e. reuse and repair, is maintained and becomes habitual. That's a key word, habitual. We can create perceived affordances or perceived value. So we can promote the right kind of behavior by reducing unwanted behaviors. It's very similar to incentives, but an example would be I could design a shoe that's customizable. This makes it more valuable to the customer because they can, customize it whatever way they want. So although the cost isn't the same, it isn't increased for me, the value is increased for you. So this engages with irrational and rational decision making. I've got a lot of notes. Another type of intervention we can offer is an assembly type repair. So this is the simplest type of repair. So it's in the name really. It requires no tools or advanced knowledge. So this helps to break barriers about, I'm sure you've had this problem, or whoever's watching, that you've tried to repair something, you think, oh no, I don't want to break it, it's too complex, what do I do if this goes wrong? That means that the repair is too complicated, so we want to avoid that, and we want to create an assembly repair. Simple toolless construction, that's what I mean by that. This is a biggie. So we can design an upstream intervention. Okay, now you won't have heard of this, or I'll be surprised if you've heard of it. So these are interventions that prevent unwanted behavior from occurring in the first place, okay, compared to a downstream intervention. There's a really good analogy that I read in one of the academic journals that I found this from. And he said, this is why I put the image of the river in here. So if you imagine you're walking down a river, you see a piece of rubbish in the river, you pick it out because you're a good citizen and you love the environment. You pick out the bottle or whatever it is. Then you see another piece floating by, and another one, and another one. And because you're so focused on getting this rubbish out of the river, because you care and you don't want anything floating down and ruining things, you give no attention or concern as to who's actually throwing in the rubbish upstream. So that's the difference between those two types of intervention. An upstream intervention would be the equivalent of preventing that guy from throwing in rubbish upstream. A downstream intervention is the equivalent of just picking rubbish out and just, not preventing it from being thrown in the first place. I'll get on to how I've implemented these in a second. And the last way we can prevent these barriers from becoming a big problem is to disguise the change itself. So because the way I design behavior into a product, it isn't always followed through. So we can disguise that intervention by using incentives and perceived values again. So an example would be, if I was to make repair really easy, this would disguise the prolonging of the lifespan of the shoe, if that makes sense. So I'm getting you to do something by, changing the way you're looking at something, if that makes sense. So this is the concept shoe that I've created. I've been talking a lot about different attributes of the circular economy and behavior and how we can prevent and implement different things. But now I'm actually going to show you how these attributes or techniques and tools that I've picked up on can be applied to a real product, and what its effects are and how it actually changes behavior. So this is what I've been working on for the past year. This is just what we call an in situ photograph of a model that I've created. Just basically, it's in its natural environment. Okay. So again, this is a shoe in more of a studio environment, just it's a bit more clear. So firstly, I've changed attitudes by making the shoe easily repairable, because this helps to make them fully aware about what they're using and actually reusing. So this challenges preconceptions about footwear that they can't actually be repaired, like trainers, and everyday shoes. I've introduced incentives. So I've introduced financial rewards for returning unwanted or broken parts back to me, like the company. You can be rewarded with discounts or early access to, exclusive new products or something within this range. Encouraging you to actually give parts back to me instead of throwing them away. And consequently, repercussions for negative behavior. So like a poorer rating on like the application that you'd use to get the shoes or whatever. Perceived affordances or perceived value. So because the shoe's so easily repairable, I'll get onto it. I've got another image in a second. It's really easy to customize and create your own shoe. So this creates value for you as a consumer, because you might love purple and white or whatever color. That, compared to other shoes, you can't do that. You have to go out and find the shoe, whereas this one, you just build your own. So that creates value for you. It doesn't increase any cost for me, apart from just, finding another color. I've created an upstream intervention because there are incentives and perceived values again. This helps to reduce unwanted behavior, and it prevents bad behavior from occurring, because I've made it really difficult or impossible to actually take part in that negative behavior, because I've encouraged positive behavior so much. Okay, so that becomes reinforced and habitual again. It recurs in itself. It's like an intrinsic cycle. I've disguised the change. So if I asked you now, how would you prolong the lifespan of your shoe, you'd probably say to me, oh, well, I'll just clean it, or maybe I'll buy another pair and I'll not wear them as much. That's fine. But to ensure that you follow through with the desired behavior that I want you to follow, i.e. reusing it and reselling it and repairing it, I've disguised that as part of an app or as part of a community of users. So I've disguised that prolonging of the lifespan as repair and trading and swapping. So you're doing it without knowing you're doing it, instead of throwing stuff out. And I'll get onto this again in the next slide. I've created an assembly type repair. So this is a really simple construction. Like I mentioned, you can't get normal trainers to be repaired. It's just practically impossible. This product has been designed to be repaired within a minute without tools or any advanced knowledge. You could just pick it up and just repair it without being told what to do. This makes it more likely to be repaired because it's so easy. And this comes back to the customization again, which I've just mentioned. This is the repair process. It's really easy. So there's only 3 steps. You take the laces out, you unclip the upper, and you put the new sole on, or you'd put a new upper on. So because there's 3 components and 3 steps, there's infinite possibility for customization in terms of patterns, colors, things like that. It allows you to make your own shoe, which I've already kind of explained. But it's not complicated. You don't have to take it to a cobbler's. you are the cobbler. I'm disrupting the industry and turning the whole concept of repairing a shoe on its head to help promote reuse and repair. And just even down to the colours, the specific colours, the colourway it's called, or the colour scheme, has been designed to reflect how the native Aborigines of Australia actually looked after and regenerated and respected the land that they lived on. So this reflects the circular story that I'm trying to tell through this product. So each new release of colorway would reflect and tell a sustainable story. So this time I've chosen the Aborigines. I put a lot of effort into this because it builds on the incentives and perceived affordances. So in sneaker culture, storytelling through color and the reasons why, in patterns and colors and stuff, and the reasons why is a big part of sneaker culture. So I've put a lot of effort into making that part of this product, so that helps them buy into this system again. So, like, to summarize, I think, bear with me, just get rid of my notes. Products that people like me designers, they can only play a part in the circular economy. A lot of it is actually down to the consumer themselves, because they are the center point. They're integral to making this system work. So it's absolutely vital that we as consumers pay attention to what we're doing and how we're buying and how much care we put in, and care and attention we put into looking after things and making sure we're not throwing things out. Because just like in nature, multiple systems, they need to come together in order to make something work. So the oceans work with the trees and the roots, and everything works as a really complicated, like, clock, if you will. But it's really important that we consider that as consumers. I'm not going to save the world in terms of me designing a shoe, and you as a consumer are not going to save the world just by not throwing stuff out. We need to work together. So I hope that I've made that clear, that I can only do so much, and I've designed these interventions to encourage people, but it's really up to you and me. The only real test of success with this product would be to actually implement it and let the people decide and take part in this system. So I've just put like a really corny image in there. Together we'll change it. Just before I finish, I just want to leave you with two quotes that I think are really important. Bjarke Ingels is a Danish architect, and I think it was just recently actually, he said, if we can change the climate of the world by accident, imagine what we can achieve by trying. I thought that was a really powerful quote, and it's absolutely relevant with the topic that I've just gone over. If we just put effort in and paid a little bit more attention, we can make such a difference. And not just me as a designer, but as the consumer as well. We all need to work together. And an old favourite of York Design Week, Buckminster Fuller, one of the greatest minds of the 20th century. Really famous quote, this, call me a trim tab. I'm just going to explain what that is, because you're probably thinking, what the hell, what are you talking about? So when he died, he put this on his headstone. And the reason he put it on there was because he was an innovator, he's an architect, he pushed boundaries. And I put the image of a ship there because on big container ships, they obviously have rudders, or all boats have rudders. And at the back of the rudder, there's something called a trim tab. So this is, instead of moving and putting all this energy into moving this huge rudder to change the direction of the ship, they adjust what's called the trim tab. So it's a very small little vane that moves slightly. And over the course of 20, 50 miles, the ship will change direction. But the amount of energy it was put into the system is negligible. It's practically nothing. And that's relevant to today's topic, because you as a consumer might not think you've got a lot of influence on the world, or me as a designer, just one person. But actually, if we think about the analogy of the trim tab, we can have a huge difference. So if we just put a little bit of effort in now, years down the line, or months, decades, whatever, we'll have a huge influence on the future generation and how they live. So I thought that was a really important quote, because it means that we can make a difference. And even me doing this talk might get some people thinking about the way they consume, and I might have a little bit of an effect. But I hope I've helped, and I hope I was clear on what I was talking about and it wasn't too bad. yeah, so thank you very much for
It's really
taking
interesting.
part.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll just stop the presentation. I'll
So
stop
you
my
mentioned
screen.
the Adidas thing. I don't think I've heard about that. What is that?
Oh, right. So the Adidas Futurecraft Loop. So this was an attempt by Adidas to make a circular shoe, like or a shoe for the circular economy. So basically, it's made out of one material, TPU, which is like a flexible plastic almost. It's because it's made out of one material. If you would buy the product from Adidas, you would use it for, I don't know, 6 months, to run in shoe. And then once you finish with it, you'd give it back to Adidas. They would then remanufacture that shoe and grind it down into, little granules, and then they would melt the granules down to make another shoe. So in theory, there's little to no waste. The only waste would be, the stuff that wears off your shoe, which goes into the oceans, which is bad. But there's no incentive. So what Adidas found was they basically give like a beta test to their employees. I think they gave out around about 200 pairs to their employees, and they said, right, use your shoe for a couple of months and then bring it back to us, and we'll remanufacture it. It was like a test because obviously the shoes would be dirty and stuff like that. It was a test of the system. But what they actually found was even their employees at Adidas, they only got about 10 pairs back. Even the people who worked for the company designing the shoe didn't want to give the shoe back. So you can imagine how little a consumer is going to care when there's no incentive. Because if the employees don't care and they're designing the thing,
Yeah.
what does that mean for the consumer who's just going to buy it and use it? So it's really important to consider incentives. So I just thought that was a really good way of illustrating. I'm not slating the shoe. It's really difficult to even make something like that. But
Yeah.
objectively, from an academic standpoint, that would be the part that they were missing out on.
Yeah.
And also reuse and repair before remanufacture as well. But yeah, did I make myself clear?
Yeah. 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 So what's your plan with the shoe? Are you hoping to sort of get this fully developed into something?
Ideally, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to the shoe because you'd have to make, you basically have to do a lot of testing. I've kind of gone through the first phase of creating a concept, and to move forward, you'd have to do a lot of testing because it's very ergonomically demanding a shoe. And on top of that, I'd have to get people to invest in, putting up the tooling ready to make this thing, because part of it is actually 3D printed, so using future technologies, but also because I don't think anyone's really hit the nail on the head with the circular economy yet in terms of the fashion industry. I have to implement take back systems, which is really hard. I have to be. So what happens from my point of view when I get the shoe back? How do I then turn that worn down material into something new?
Yeah.
I would love to make it. I absolutely love it. I need to I'm in the process of raising some capital, to actually start investing in the tooling and the procedures and the things that need to be put in place. But yeah, I'd love to make it. I really would. It's just a matter of time, I think. Who knows?
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I think I'm trying to think of sort of what kind of questions people would ask. I think, like you talked about the bag for life thing. So obviously, when supermarkets stopped using plastic bags and started using sort of bags for life only, I remember reading something that said to make it worthwhile, you have to use that bag like 100 times or something for it to be sort of sort of to have some sort of impact. But then what they do with them afterwards. So I guess the point I'm trying to get to is, so when we got to that point of the shoe came back to you, what sort of environmental impact would that have to then change that into the next shoe? Does that make
You
sense?
mean, you mean like the energy I have to put into remanufacturing it? Yes, there is a lot of energy putting into it, but I think what I was trying to illustrate was, in order to make this system successful, we would first need to reuse it as many times as possible.
Yeah.
So instead of sending it straight back to me, you'd give it to your friends. You'd use the app to trade stuff, especially when you've got different styles that you don't want. So using that, instead of me using the shoe hundreds of worth at a time, that wasn't English. Do you know what I mean? Instead of using it, 100 times over, I would then give it to someone else. So therefore, the value of the material and the shoe itself is being taken advantage of before it's remanufactured. So then when it finally gets to the point where I'm remanufacturing it, all the energy in terms of the value of the product and the material is being taken advantage of. To be completely honest, you want to avoid remanufacturing if you can. It's unavoidable, but you want to prolong that. It's called prolonging the lifespan of the loops. So we prolong each section for as long as we can before we get to the point where we remanufacture it. Recycling is actually the last option in the circular economy. A lot of people think it's like the first thing you do, but it's actually the last thing you do, because there's so much value in the material. Think about phones or Air Jordans or something.
Yeah.
You'd never throw away a pair of Jordans. You would always resell them. So therefore, there's still value in that material. There's energy locked in there before we remanufacture it. I'm not sure if I've answered the question. I hope I have.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think what you just said about the idea of reusing, I think people are becoming more aware of that. So the street I live on now, so every Sunday they do, I can't remember what they call it. It's basically like a swap shop type thing. And anything that you were going to throw away, you don't need anymore. You just literally leave outside your house. People go pick things up. The idea is of reusing things. I think that people are getting those ideas slowly.
Yeah. I think it's really difficult to change behavior. I know what you're saying. That's good. That's what I want people to do. It's like, is it like Depop where you just kind of sell and swap stuff as well? You leave it out the front. That's a really good attitude to have. It's really difficult to change behavior. If you've ever tried to change a habit in your life, you know how hard it is. Let alone trying to do it from a distance, i.e. me trying to change your behavior when I don't know you or how you live your life. Like I said, the only real test measure of success would be the test of time, to actually put the effort in and just let people adjust to this new way of living where we don't waste things and everything's valuable, no matter where it is in its cycle, we'll call it that. But yeah, it will take time, I think, and they are becoming aware. It's just a matter of time.
I suppose you would have sort of hoped that sort of Adidas with their initial thing would have sort of learned from that and do the next step and think, instead of just scrapping it, start thinking, right, okay, how do we make people bring these shoes back and interact with this initiative more?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no way that they were going to get that right the first time.
No.
Absolutely. It's not possible. I mean, I know I sounded like I was slating this shoe, but I wasn't. It's really difficult, and they've achieved an absolute miracle by getting that system to work. But yeah, it's an iteration. Design is like an evolutionary process. It doesn't work, we'll change something. Then the next step, oh, that was great. What have we learned from that? We'll change something else. Then maybe 5-6 generations down the line, they'll have got that shoe to the point where it does make a huge difference, and people return the parts and then they remanufacture them without using much energy, and there's no waste, and they use biodegradable TPUs and all sorts. It's just a matter of time, and I think they've paved the way, and they've said, no, we're not going to accept this for the way it is. We're going to change things for the better, and this is how we want to do it. And they've put the effort in, and it hasn't worked perfectly the first time. Like, nothing ever does. Look at the Wright brothers, but now give it a decade, and I think that'll be the way we consume not just shoes but other products. What I've talked about can be applied to pretty much any product. Things will have to change, but I just chose to go down the footwear avenue. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Did you say you had a prototype or something?
Oh yeah, I forgot. I just wanted to show people. So this is what it looks like. The color's a little bit off. It's just a model, but
Yeah.
You can see. So this would be a biodegradable TPU. So there's actually like a lattice structure inside of the sole.
Yeah.
Which would flex when you're walking on it. So I'm avoiding using harsh materials like EVA foam. And then at the top, I've got this material which would be like a hemp and a bamboo composite. So it's like a stretchy material that conforms to the foot and provides extra comfort. And then this is the thing that actually holds things together. This is what's structurally sound. I had a lot of issues with this designing it because when I was considering how you would use it as a consumer, I had Velcro on it. It felt kind of childish and immature. Whereas a lace, when you see a lace, you know exactly what to do with it.
Yeah.
You lace something up with a lace. You know, it's in the name. So I thought, well, you've already habituated. You know what to do when you see a lace. So I'll incorporate that into this part. It just makes that whole process of understanding what to do with something without instructions a lot easier. Because if I'd have made it too different, you would have looked at it and you thought, oh, no, I'm a bit unsure about that. It just makes this whole concept of a repairable shoe a lot more familiar and comfortable, you know, and easier to understand than it would be something completely new. And I suppose in a couple of generations, this would change, just like the Adidas shoe.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was quite difficult to make in lockdown, but I managed to do it anyway. Yeah.
That's great. Really, really interesting. Is there some websites or some stuff we can sort of direct people to if they want to find out more? Obviously, your contact details as well if anyone wants to hear.
Yeah, I don't mind giving you my LinkedIn page because that's public anyway. And I've got an online portfolio that you can view. But I mean, if they want to contact me on LinkedIn, if they've got any questions or anything they want to know more about, or if they're really interested, I'm more than happy to answer some questions and, you know, send you some stuff that I've learned, or even the, you know, the research that I've undertaken myself. I'm happy to share that list because I'm sure people would have their own opinions. But yeah, I'll send you all that information. It's mostly my LinkedIn page, to be honest.
Thanks, Jack. Thank you for opening the conversation about a completely different industry that we haven't actually heard about as well. That was really interesting.
Right.
So we're going to go into a really quick sort of Q&A session. So we're asking all our speakers the same sort of 5 questions based around the 5 themes of your design week. So the first theme is play. So play has been shown to release endorphins and improve brain functionality and stimulate creativity, but there's misconception that play is only for children. How do you play as an adult?
I've been thinking about this. So basically, I think there's 2 ways. The first way is, I think a lot of people are really serious, and it's good to be serious, and you know, you get stuff done when you take stuff seriously, but just have a bit of fun sometimes. Like at work, I mess around. I'm sure the students would agree with me. You know, I'm teaching at the minute that I mess around a bit, and it's good because it just livens up the atmosphere a bit. And in terms of play, I suppose I've just been a bit of an idiot sometimes, but during some scenarios. But also, if I'm being completely honest, I actually like to play with Connects still. Some people might not know what Connects is, but it sounds daft, but I used to love it as a kid, and it helped me think, and it still helps me think. It's nostalgic. Once I start connecting things, I start thinking about how stuff can work, and I was really interested in that as a kid. I've still got the same box that I have as a kid, so like every now and then, I'll just get out of the box and just sit, and I'll just mess around and start building things. I love stuff like that, like Meccano and Connects and stuff like that. Absolutely love it.
That's when ideas sort of come to you, isn't it? When you're not consciously thinking of it, subconsciously something else is bringing to your mind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the best ideas are always unconscious, I think. Absolutely. Best ideas I've always had when I'm walking down the street or playing with Connects. I'm just messing around and seeing what I can make. And then before you know it, I remember I made like a walking robot when I was, about 8 or something, without any instructions, just because I was messing on with it, and I was just fascinated. Yeah, it helps me think. I'd advise anyone to do stuff like that. It's great.
So the next thing we've got for your design week is rewild. This is all about sort of reconnecting with nature, using the green space around you. So how do you have you got green space around you? Are you based in York?
I am based in York. I didn't have a lot of green space in. Sorry,
I was just saying, so how do you reconnect with nature and the green space?
That's a difficult question. I think I've done a bit of traveling beforehand, because a lot, like the past couple of years, I've been living in like little studio flats, so you don't have access to green space. So I think for me, my escape would be physically getting away from all of that kind of concrete and like rectilinear construction and traveling. So like I've done a bit of backpacking. I've been, you know, Dubai, Singapore, New York, all those kinds of places. But when I'm traveling, I always like to disconnect from the world and just go out. Even the Lake District. Lake District would probably be my favorite place, because I just go there and there's nothing bothering me. I'm just at one, and you know, there's nothing bothering me, and it's nice and calm. I can think. I can, you know, just enjoy being around that kind of stuff. I think that would be just traveling. I think, and once lockdown's over, I'll definitely be looking to go around the Highlands in Scotland, do a bit of traveling around there, you know,
Nice.
just camping and stuff, and just
Yeah.
being at one again. If that's not too corny, but
I think it's what everyone's missing this year, isn't it? Sort of
yeah,
everyone's ready for it. We need it.
yeah,
So another theme for your design week is space. So space not necessarily being a physical place, but the idea that people can make spaces and things can make spaces. Um, so what sort of spaces have you created? Anything specifically this year, obviously with lockdown, or just in general?
I think in terms of spaces, I did actually. Can I just share my screen
Yeah,
again?
yeah, of course.
Bear with me. So I'll just bring this up again. So as part of my third year project, I decided to actually combat loneliness by using, well, I didn't know it at the time, but it ended up being co-living spaces. And I was absolutely fascinated by the way we interact. So I found that in my research, loneliness was like a lack of meaningful connections in your life. So I thought, well, let's go back to our roots and understand where we've come from. We used to live in tribes. We used to live together in, you know, little packs, and we'd done everything together. And that's kind of missing from today's society, especially in the city, when you're just kind of living in a studio flat and you don't interact much. You know, it doesn't help us. Like with older and younger people are actually more susceptible to loneliness than older people, which is the opposite of what I thought beforehand.
Yeah,
But I thought, I designed this space to be like a co-living space. So you would like sleep in this like room that, you know, in a circle. And then within the center, you've got this like indoor park almost, that's like an open natural environment that you can interact with people with in and around. Although it's not, you know, it's not a real place, I'm fascinated by the way we interact in these, you know, machines that we call homes or living spaces, and how that affects our relationships and how we feel. And I just thought that was really fascinating. I'd love to actually get this thing built, but again, it's a huge building, so
yeah,
probably not within the realms of possibility. But yeah, I really wish I could do something like that for real, because I'd put a lot of effort into it, and I think it'd actually make a real difference.
yeah, make a massive impact.
Yeah, 'cause it's a big problem, especially with lockdown, isolation. You know, I think one of the worst punishments you can give a human is isolation, and everyone's experienced that this year. And we can see how these buildings affect the way we are and the way we feel. So I'd love to counteract that with a co-living space
Yeah.
at some point in the future, maybe. But yeah, I'll just stop my screen.
So the fourth theme for your design week is trust. So really broad question. What do you trust in?
I would say that I trust in our ability to innovate and push boundaries. I have faith that one day we'll overcome every problem, and I trust in people to do that. So, you know, like with innovation and, you know, medical and all kind of third world problems and stuff like that, I think I have a lot of trust and faith that we can do that as a species to overcome these problems. And I trust myself to problem solve objectively. I think I trust in my own ability to problem solve. Although I don't know what the solution may entail, whatever, you know, however long it'll take, I trust that I can solve this problem eventually. And I think I've done that with this project. But yeah, I think there's two different answers there, if that's all right.
That quote you shared actually as well, that was said, we unintentionally changed the climate of the world. Imagine what we could do if we tried. It was something along those lines. Got me really thinking, the idea of trusting in that there are these people trying to make this change. And we've done this unintentionally, but
Yeah, it really
imagine if
gets.
we all came together, what we could do.
Yeah, if we've basically terraformed and destroyed the planet by accident.
Yeah.
Imagine what we could do if we put effort in that. It just starts. Well, I basically just told the quote, but yeah, once you start thinking about it, you think, oh my, yeah, wow, yeah. Imagine it if we actually put some effort in, and
Yeah.
you can imagine the implications of what we could do and achieve would be unimaginable.
Yeah. So the last theme of your design week is share. So very, very, very relevant this year, and obviously with October 10th being Mental Health Awareness Day. So we've seen a lot of campaigns around keeping the conversation going. Obviously this year's been very isolating for people. Have you had to learn new ways of sharing and opening up to people?
Yeah, to be completely honest, sometimes I actually struggle with reading body language and emotions with people. I find that really hard. So when lockdown became a thing, I was actually still teaching, but then I had to teach online at that time. And I found it really hard because I had to learn new ways of reading what people were thinking, and without actually with them saying, because a lot of communication is actually non-verbal. And I've had to learn and adapt the way I communicate, because a lot of it now is actually digital, and it's quite emotionally cold compared to being with someone and chatting to them in the room. You know, even if it's like a professional thing where you're just trying to evaluate someone's work or give them some advice or something, it's really hard. So I've had to learn how to adapt the way I, read that information and convey what I want to say, as well as understanding what they're saying, to achieve the same kind of result. But I've learned a lot, and I think it's been a good thing for me. I think it's not a negative thing. Yeah, I think it's been really good for me. So
I've
yeah.
really felt for sort of teachers and lecturers and stuff this year. Sort of, when you can only see this sort of view, you miss those things of somebody tapping their pencil on the desk, or their leg shaking, or if their arms are folded or if they're unfolded. It's those sorts of things you can't see and you can't pick up on, and trying to judge the room without those must be really difficult.
Yeah, like like when you're trying to explain a concept, and then in person you could see them at the back of the room going, and you'd kind of think, oh, is he confused? I'm not right. I'll elaborate on this further. Whereas with digital stuff, a lot of the time they don't show the face, which is fine anyway. But even when they do, you've got like 18 people in that little space, like you said. It's really difficult to pick up on that when you're trying to also share a screen and teach. So yeah, I've definitely learned a lot, and I'll probably end up doing a project on it, knowing me. But yeah,
Something will come of it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jack. That was really insightful. As I said before, we'll leave links for everybody to find you if they want to ask you any questions, get more details. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, and I hope everyone's enjoyed the talk. Thanks again. See you.